It's May 2nd, 2026. We're doing this again. I'm going to read another Tumblr post that I just made. And one of the response that Martha Wells stands, who, love slavery apologism, decided to respond to it with. Alrighty. Among so many other things, and Martha Wells made it so that the Murderbot Diaries, I should say, the original post was made with speech-to-text from my phone, so speech-to-text is kind of shitty if you've ever used it. You know this, so it just likes to insert random words. So I will just read it the way I actually said it and not the way speech-to-text decided to fuck it up. Among so many other things, Martha Wells made it so that the Murderbot Diaries is inherently incapable of actually criticizing capitalism or slavery by not only making the oppressed people actual, literal, superpowered weapons that are dangerous to everyone around them, the enslaved people literally do not require food, water, clothing, and they barely need to breathe. So all of the critique that we could be making about capitalism, about how necessities are withheld from people, that goes out the fucking window, because the main character doesn't actually need any of these fucking things, and doesn't even want them, and all of the other people it hangs out with are disgustingly rich and never need money for anything, because they literally live in a place that's also run on slave labor, but Martha Wells tells us that we should see it as a utopia. Literally, there are no fucking poor people in this series whatsoever. We never see people who are forced to go hungry. We never see people who are left out in the elements. We never see people struggling with horrible jobs just to survive. None of that. She's not actually criticizing capitalism in any fucking way. She literally purposefully threw away 90% of her opportunities to criticize capitalism, and with the remaining opportunities, she takes every chance she can to instead shill for the corporations while pretending that she's somehow criticizing them. The Murderbot Diaries isn't actually anti-capitalist or anti-corporation. It's not only pro-slavery propaganda, it's literal fucking pro-capitalist propaganda, because every time she could be actually criticizing it, she instead does propaganda for it, like saying, as fact, that is never, ever, 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 ever refuted. And it is, in fact, held up as true, that you should definitely let corporations investigate themselves, because they want to get to the truth, and they will expend every resource necessary to find out who hurt you, because they want to protect you. And that is genuine. That's not sarcastic. She literally wants us to think that corporations should be trusted to investigate themselves, because they will do the right thing. Even though that's like anti-capitalism 101 basic fucking corruption. But she wants us to think that it's totally fine and awesome, and corporations will always try to get to the truth, and then heroically reveal that truth to the fucking public. Sure, every now and then, one of the disgustingly rich characters from the slave labor-run quote-unquote utopia will be like, "Gee willikers, that other slave labor-run place really sucks." And the protagonist will sarcastically go, "Wow, are you only figuring that out now?" And then that's literally the fucking end of the conversation. And then the next scene we'll have Murderbot, the fucking protagonist we're supposed to love and adore, saying that it's mean and cruel to graffiti over corporate logos because that means ... Wait for it ... You're dehumanizing the corporation, just like people dehumanize Murderbot. And you don't want to be like the people who are mean to Murderbot, do you? There will be zero discussion of the fact that Murderbot, as a black, physically disabled person, is constantly being dehumanized, not only by all of its slave owners, but also by the author herself. Instead, we're just focusing on the fact that Martha Wells hates graffiti and thinks it's inherently bad and evil. And this was even before she wrote Rapport, where despite claiming to enjoy archaeology, she claims that graffiti is bad, and therefore the beautiful Ancient Aliens bullshit mural that the disgustingly rich genocide spectators came to see is definitely, magically, totally separate from the rest of the graffiti. Literally, I'm not joking. She wrote an entire scene where she equates putting graffiti over corporate logos to dehumanizing slaves. A thing she doesn't actually want us to think is bad, or she wouldn't have written the series the way she is, but she still says it is in this 5 seconds where she tells us, don't graffiti over corporate logos. That's bad. That's mean. Don't you know that hurts the feelings of slaves? who are also inanimate objects? Because she really fucking hates graffiti and thought claiming it's the same as dehumanizing enslaved people would be a good excuse to demonize it. You can't make this shit up. Martha Wells is such an anti-black, classist piece of shit, she decided to equate graffitiing over corporate logos to dehumanizing enslaved people. And she's 100% serious. But yeah, she literally made it so that the story where she's supposed to be criticizing capitalism fundamentally cannot and will not actually criticize capitalism in any fucking way, because she doesn't actually want to, so she's writing the story so that she doesn't ever have to. We will never fucking see the most basic aspects of inequality that capitalism relies on, because our protagonist literally does not need anything to survive except a bare minimum level of oxygen, and this isn't even a fucking world where everybody is forced to walk around with their personalized subscription-based oxygen tanks! You can write a story criticizing capitalism when your protagonist is a fucking immortal, literally, who doesn't need to eat, need water, need shelter, need clothes, and barely needs to breathe. But why the fuck would you want to do that? And furthermore, Martha Wells doesn't even want to do that, and she sure as hell is not doing that. This isn't a story about an immortal person. And again, notice how the white woman from Texas has made the literal enslaved people superheroes who are superpowered and literally don't require any of the normal things to survive? Yeah, this is a fucking pattern. Who has to watch helplessly as their mortal friends are forced to suffer the effects of capitalism while not being able to do anything to help, because as a slave of the state, they don't get paid, so they can't even fucking contribute to the goddamn food and shelter fund. That's not even what this is, because every single person Murderbot has ever met are disgustingly rich people in an isolationist, quote-unquote utopia that's also literally based on slave labor. The series isn't criticizing capitalism or corporations. Martha Wells doesn't even actually want to do any of those things. More than half the time, she's doing propaganda for them instead. If you listen to the Murderbot Diaries and Martha Wells, you would think it's a fantastic fucking idea for oil corporations to investigate themselves for the cause of oil spills, because according to Martha Wells and the Murderbot Diaries, corporations will always put every resource they have into finding the truth and revealing the truth to everyone, and you should trust them implicitly because they will always tell the truth. Stop lying to people and telling them that the series is progressive or even remotely anti-capitalist. It's fucking not. And this is even before we get to the ridiculous fucking prices of these things that don't even add up to a fourth of a goddamn actual book. And the fact that the first 4 of them are blatantly one really shallow book that was chopped into 4 so that Martha Wells and the corporation she's publishing through could justify selling 25% of a really shallow, shitty book for the same price as an actual, well-written, full-length novel. Rapport should have been the last fucking straw for most of you motherfuckers, but you are also racist and you don't care that she literally has disgustingly rich academics that we're meant to adore casually and happily waltzing past to genocide without even thinking about wanting to help. You are already a racist if you accept that without question, and you are actively becoming more racist every time you continue to praise these books and double down on defending Martha Wells' slavery apologism and genocide apologism and so much more. These books are actively training you to become a slavery apologist, and most of you are just 100% happy for that to happen because you are already a slavery apologist before you started reading these. If those statements piss you off because you don't think of yourself as a slavery apologist or a racist, congratulations. This is one of your literal endless opportunities to stop fucking defending this shit and start actually using critical thinking skills. I promise you, you can go and read other books, including literally for free. You want bare minimum recommendation? Go read the Imperial Raj series, the thing Martha Wells explicitly cites as her direct inspiration for writing All Systems Red. Go look at the actual writing and anti-capitalist and anti-imperialist critique that she read, and then completely fucking bastardized and purposefully misinterpreted to continue upholding her racist, slavery apologist, and so much more worldview. There are literal public domain books written before segregation was officially outlawed in the United States that care more about enslaved people than Martha Wells does in 2026. Go fucking read The Velvet Glove by Harry Harrison. It is a literal short story, and it accomplishes everything in a short fucking story that Martha Wells will never ever fucking accomplish in anything she writes, because she doesn't actually think that slavery is bad at the end of the day. That's why it's 2026, and the newest fucking book still has the protagonist demonizing other slaves and still prioritizing disgustingly rich slave owners over poor people and enslaved people at every opportunity, to the point there's literally not a single fucking named character who is poor. They literally don't exist in Martha Wells' worldview, because the only people that matter to Martha Wells are rich people who are literally all slave owners. The fact that this fandom tries to argue with me that the Preservation Aux team are not slave owners because they're nice to Murderbot, when that's literally not fucking true. They are disgustingly and horrifically abusive to Murderbot, even before we get to the part where owning a slave is inherently abusive. Literally, their entire fucking planet is run on slave labor. Even if they hadn't gone solar systems out of their way to enslave Murderbot, they are all still slave owners because their entire goddamn economy is run on slave labor, and they all profit from it and are happy to do so. Go read books that actually care about people on a fundamental level, something a Martha Wells story will never do, because she only cares about rich people who are literal slave owners. Everybody else in her eyes is gross and probably ugly and smelly too, and worth so little attention that they literally don't appear in this series at all. Now, as I think this happened the last time too, we have another racist Martha Wells stan, who decided to be a coward as well, because they reblogged this post, but instead of just putting their commentary in the post itself like a normal person, they kept it in the tags, which meant they were hoping I wouldn't see it, which means, to anybody who doesn't see their tags, they are reblogging my post in pure agreement. It's just weird, cowardly behavior, and it's weird. But anyways, I separated out what they said, so so I could respond to it better. So let me just read just what they said, and then I'll read the part where I break it up and respond to it, because this is pathetic. Alright, you ready? All that I just said? The one who drives said, "My sibling in Christ, book 2. The second one starts with Murderbot being on a transport with a bunch of humans who unknowingly signed themselves into indentured servitude and are only now realizing what shit they got into. The corporations using slave labor is a frequently mentioned topic, for fuck's sake. Also, the Prez Aux crew and its clients in book 2 are fucking broke! I mean, the literal reason the plot of the books even happened is because the Prez Aux team got the cheapest sec unit they could get, and before you say anything, their other stuff is said to be cheap too. Same with its clients in book 2. 3 is kinda ambiguous. The only one that can be considered rich is Art and Co. Also, what are you talking about Utopia being run by slaves? You mean Prez Aux? They literally don't do that. Also, you describing sec units as superpower weapons that are dangerous to all those around them shows that you didn't pay much attention reading. Sorry, hun, but it seems like you're just making a bad faith interpretation of a book for woke points." Okay. First of all, if you misuse woke like that to be insulting, you are a piece of shit. You are an anti-black piece of shit. Being woke is not a bad thing. It literally means that black people are aware of anti-blackness and are taking note and are trying to fucking fight for their rights. Just because fucking conservatives stole it and are trying to turn it into the new version of political correctness and turn it into a mockery does not mean you get to also fucking be an anti-black piece of shit and turn it into something that is mocking. You should never be fucking using the word woke as any kind of negative. And by that I mean, that doesn't mean you get to say, doing X, Y, and Z isn't woke, when it has nothing to do with anti-blackness, and you are just using it to insult people for not doing things the right way, and all kinds of bullshit. Stop fucking appropriating AAVE. Stop fucking stealing terms from black people. Fucking listen when black people tell you constantly over and over again throughout the fucking years. Stop stealing their fucking words. Stop misusing the term woke. Do not use wokely. Don't fucking say that shit. Do not say woke mind virus. Don't stop fucking parroting conservatives when they say anti-black shit like this. Don't fucking do that. Second of all, the starting with my sibling in Christ. Again, this is more anti-blackness. The meme of my brother in Christ, that comes from fucking Christian churches wanting to quote black music, but not wanting to say the N-word, and so that they can pretend that they are owning and taking ownership over this black music that they are appropriating and saying is actually about Christianity, they say my brother in Christ instead. And now so many fucking people are just mindlessly repeating it and pretending it's gender neutral and pretending it's totally progressive and awesome and fine to literally quote Christians, fucking white Christians who are literally trying not even trying, they are literally appropriating black music and trying to pretend that it's actually about them and their church if they switch out the fucking words. Alright. So I said, I tagged the person, the one who drives, and said, the one who drives is a racist little coward who left this in the tags like a coward. 'Cause if you can't tell, I'm not pulling punches with these people because A, that doesn't fucking work. B, they don't, even if it did work, they don't deserve it. I literally said in this post, if you are upset by this post, then you need to go and actually fucking start using critical thinking skills. You need to actually go read books that actually care about poor people and think by authors who actually think slavery is horrific. You know, do literally anything besides continuing to worship slavery apologism and dying on the hill of defending it. Nobody's paying you to die on the hill of defending slavery apologism. Anyways, let's go. The one who drives is a racist little coward who left this in the tags like a coward. My sibling in Christ! So I said, did you fucking know that meme comes from Christians stealing phrases from black people but removing the N-word to pretend they own it? Also, I'm not a fucking Christian. Do not associate me with your bullshit. And then they said, book 2. And then in parentheses, 2. The number 2. And then in parentheses, the second one, which I'm going to interrupt my post here just to state, it's very funny when these people act like I'm the one who doesn't know how many books are in this series, when I have to explain to them that there are, in fact, 13 goddamn stories in this series. And I'm probably the only reason any of them have read Obsolescence, because Martha Wells doesn't fucking make it easy to find despite it being free, and that's probably why. Anyways, the second one starts with Murderbot being on a transport with a bunch of humans who unknowingly signed themselves into indentured servitude and are only now realizing what shit they got into. I said, yes, person who thinks simply stating actions without admitting how they're framed is the same thing as proving evidence the story isn't racist and classist. And how does the narrative treat those people who were sold into slavery? How does the narrative treat those people who were sold into slavery? It demonizes them to hell and back, and presents them as the worst people imaginable. Murderbot doesn't even think about trying to help them, because we're not supposed to care about them. If we were, the narrative would have done something other than victim blame and demonize them. And also, I forgot to say this in the post, but they're literally not actual characters. They are all background characters at best. They get mentioned probably like maybe 2 pages or so. They're not actual characters. They are literally just set dressing that is shoved off screen, and that's it. That's the end of it. Nobody helps them because, the entire fucking framing of them is that it's their own fault for being sold into slavery because they were too stupid to read the contract and make sure the contract wasn't tricking them. Martha Wells literally decided to go with victim blaming. The corporations using slave labor is a frequently mentioned topic, for fuck's sake. And they have, for fuck's sake, abbreviated as FFS, just for posterity. I said, wow, did you know that simply mentioning that slavery exists is not the same thing as actually condemning it? You want to explain to the class how every slave that's not Murderbot or Art gets treated in the series? You want to explain to the class why all of the characters we're supposed to like are all disgustingly rich slave owners, or exactly two slaves who are one of the good ones? Mickey was killed off as soon as Martha Wells could, to show that it's one of the good ones because it kills itself to protect its slave owners. 3 immediately gets demonized and retconned to be scarily mentally ill and didn't actually have friends among these other slaves. Don't be ridiculous. It just hallucinated caring about other people and cannot be trusted around Murderbot's precious, adorable slave owners because, like all slaves that's not one of the good ones, it might snap at any time and go on a rampage, quote, for no reason. You want to explain to the class how many slaves have been murdered and tortured to death by the protagonists who are only ever rewarded for doing so, and how none of the protagonists we're meant to see as good people ever even think about how upsetting this is? No? You're just going to ignore and now blatantly lie about that? Yeah. Typical fandom racist behavior, shocking to literally no one. They said, also the Prezox crew and its clients in book 2 are fucking broke! That broke is in all caps, hence why I'm doing a funny voice on it. Looky, racist media stands straight up lying in the most blatant ways possible. Imagine claiming that the Preservation Ox team are poor people. Motherfucker, Mensa is literally the president of an entire fucking planet run on slave labor. She owns a massive house and a farm, and did I mention she's the president of the entire fucking planet? Stop lying to people if you're going to claim to be doing media analysis. Oh, but the people in book 2 were poor. No, they literally were not. They're also rich academics who literally got paid to do whatever they wanted and do their own separate research on another company's time. They're not poor just because Martha Wells tells you to feel bad for them because they're not purposefully renting out a slave to use as a human shield. They are literally rich academics who literally got paid to goof off on company time and do whatever they wanted and didn't struggle to pay for a single thing the entire story, or even talk about struggling with money in the off-screen imaginary backstory land that means nothing. Try the fuck again. I mean, the literal reason the plot of the books even happened is because the Prezox team got the cheapest sec unit they could get. And I said, you mean the rich motherfuckers from a planet run on slave labor went solar systems out of their way to rent out a slave to use as a human shield and for manual labor because paying for an actual team of people they admit are people would be more expensive? Wow! It's almost like slavery is an economic system. It's almost like slave labor is cheaper than labor you actually pay someone for a reason. Also, no. You're flat out lying again. They didn't get the cheapest sec unit they could get. You're thinking of the fucking TV show, which has nothing to do with the books except further condemning Martha Wells as a happy white supremacist for cheering on her black non-binary protagonist being whitewashed by a cis white man whose family has fucking dedicated itself to whitewashing non-white characters. And they said, and before you say anything, their other stuff is said to be cheap too. Again. But it was cheaper for them to use slave labor. Isn't the defense of fucking slavery you think it is? They said, same with its clients in book 2. I said, literally not true. You are fucking lying right now. Try again. They said, 3 is kinda ambiguous. I said, 3 is ambiguous about what? Being demonized like every other fucking slave in the series that's not Art, Murderbot, or Mickey, who killed itself to protect its slave owners? They said, the only one that can be considered rich is Art and Co. I said, Martha Wells' slavery apologism and classism is working so well, these people are convincing themselves that disgustingly rich academics, whose entire planet is run on slave labor, who are literally the fucking president of said entire planet, are magically not rich people. They're totally poor people just like us. That's why they have free and unending access to food, medical care, and own acres and acres of land, along with all the slaves that work on that land. Give me a fucking break. Also, no, art isn't rich. Art is a fucking slave. The colonizing university that owns it is rich, as are the rest of its slave owners. But art is not. The fact that you don't even grasp that art is just as much a slave as Murderbot or Mickey or any of the other nameless slaves who get demonized and tortured to death by the protagonists is literally proving how well the slavery apologism in this series is working. They said, also, what are you talking about? Utopia run by slaves. You mean Prezox? And to interrupt my reading here, wow, you mean the thing I explicitly said multiple times? So they're either pretending not to have read my post or just didn't fucking read, which both are likely. I said, the fact that you're pretending not to know this is literally making you look worse. You understand that, right? They said, they literally don't do that. I said, why do you think lying about basic facts of the series will make you look good? You literally are just making a fool of yourself. This is just pathetic. Preservation Ox is literally run on robot slave labor. The robot slaves are literally owned by their employers, also known as blatant fucking slavery. Just because Martha Wells wants you to think this is okay and fine doesn't mean you get to lie and pretend it's not slavery or that you don't know what's going on when Book 1 spelled it out explicitly in one of the few things this dumpster fire of slavery apologism ever did right. For, of course, throwing that out the window as the rest of the series wants you to forget those surface-level criticisms of quote-unquote nice slavery and instead just accept that nice slavery is totally different from slavery. They said, also, you describing sec units as superpower weapons that are dangerous to all those around them shows you didn't pay much attention when reading. I said, again, lying. Martha Wells literally went out of her way to make the slaves in this story literally super strong, super fast, immortal, never run out of energy, don't need to eat, don't need to sleep, don't need to use the bathroom, barely even need to breathe, are completely unbothered by extreme temperatures, and can magically hack anything they want at any time. Oh, and also they literally have guns in their arms that never misfire, never run out of ammo, have no range limit, never jam, and never fail, ever, at all. But this fucking coward wants to lie and claim they're totally not superpowered, oppressed, or anything, or that the narrative isn't constantly literally telling us point blank that slaves who aren't one of the good ones just need to stay enslaved because they're too dangerous to let have free will. Think of the poor, innocent slave owners who've never done anything wrong in their lives. They said, sorry, hun, but it just seems you're making a bad faith interpretation of a book for woke points. I said, and more anti-blackness on top of the slavery apologism you've already decided to defend, like the cowardly racist piece of shit you are. Good job showing everyone how the Murderbot fandom literally cannot defend it without completely making shit up and spewing more slavery apologism and anti-blackness. The attempt at being condescending while literally keeping the shit in the tags like a coward is fucking hilarious. Thank you for once again proving to everyone that everything I say about this series and the fandom is true. You people will just pull the most blatant lies out of your asses when you're not repeating back the exact same slavery apologism as though it makes it fine when you say it. Here's a pro tip. If you have to blatantly lie about a book series to try and defend it from criticism, you should just admit to yourself that you can't defend it. And that's it. You can set your watch by this shit. Like, every single fucking time you criticize anything in the series, these people will... I literally have a bingo card. I don't remember where I might have it. Let me right-click, paint. I'm too lazy to find the bingo card right now, but, like, I filled out a fucking bingo card because there's certain things that Murderbot stands, just like all other racist media stands, will always do. They will pretend that, first of all, the usual go-to tactic is to claim you haven't actually read the books at all, even when that is the most absurd thing they could possibly say, because the things you're criticizing are things that only people who've read the books would know about. They will claim that you don't understand how stories work while you are explicitly deconstructing the story and criticizing how it was written. in very specific fucking detail and pointing out the framing of the story, a thing they don't want to admit exists. They will just flat out fucking lie about the most fundamental things of the story, the entire basis for the story, such as these people claiming that the Preservation Ox team aren't slave owners, despite the fact that they literally bought a fucking slave and literally went solar systems out of their way to rent a slave to use not only for manual labor, but to use as a human shield. And the fact that they were totally fine with doing that and happy to do that, and literally spent a month on that fucking planet treating Murderbot exactly like the slave they rented it out to be. They will, if they decide to skip all over those things, they'll just call you slurs, various slurs. Sometimes they will assume that because you are criticizing anti-blackness, that it means you must be black, because they literally cannot conceptualize caring about other oppressed people, so they'll just use anti-black slurs. So many things. Like, I literally have a bingo card. The favorite thing that Martha Wells stands do is claim that everything you criticize about the series is actually not a problem because Murderbot's an unreliable narrator, when that's not how unreliable narrators work. Murderbot isn't an unreliable narrator about the slavery apologism in the series, because if it were, I wouldn't be complaining about it, and neither would anybody else except people who confuse the unreliable narration for the author's endorsement, but that's not what's going on here. Murderbot isn't an unreliable narrator about conveying Martha Wells' views on slavery. These are just Martha Wells' views on slavery. And you know how we know? Because the narrative, what she's actually writing, never proves Murderbot wrong. Again, am I just gonna have to make my own fucking audiobook? I think I actually started that. I guess I gotta make my own audiobook again of Flatland. You know, actual, proper, unreliable narrator who says slavery is good, and the entire point of the series is that he's a bigoted piece of shit asshole who doesn't know anything and is wrong about everything. If Murderbot were actually an unreliable narrator, and this series were actually condemning slavery apologism, I wouldn't be complaining about it now, would I? The thing that the most media stands refuse to grasp is that framing is a thing. Oh, like this person displays it perfectly. They're like, oh, but the fact that companies use slave labor is brought up a couple of times, so that's the same thing as saying slavery is bad. And it's like, no, it's not. Simply acknowledging that slavery is a thing is not the same thing as condemning slavery. Especially not when the entire rest of the series is dedicated, and was dedicated from the moment Martha Wells published the first fucking thing and shared the first fucking draft with Tor/Reactor, whichever one they're fucking called now, has been dedicated to demonizing slaves at literally every opportunity and saying that you shouldn't free them because they are too dangerous to poor innocent slave owners. As I can't remember if it was in a video or not, but my twin literally pointed out, because they remember this part of System Collapse that I don't, because I haven't reread it yet for the live reading thing. We're gonna get there eventually. Pointed out that literally in System Collapse, maybe it was Network Effect, I don't fucking remember. One of those two. It doesn't really fucking matter because, you know, nothing has progressed since Network Effect came out. It's literally just the same goddamn thing over and over again. So they may as well be the same fucking book. Points out that literally, Rathy asks Murderbot, hey, can we free this slave here who's unconscious on the ground? And Murderbot literally says no, because if we free this slave, we'll have to murder all their poor, innocent slave owners who've never done anything wrong. First of all, Martha Wells, do you not think enslaving somebody is wrong? Do you not think that's harmful? No, the answer is no, she does not. And also, the fact that these slave owners not only enslaved this person and multiple others, they are literally here to enslave more people. It is always morally fucking correct to kill slave owners to free slaves. That's not a thing that Martha Wells wants you to think, though, because She wants to be a slave owner. If she didn't, she wouldn't be writing this fucking series like this. You can in fact fucking tell what people's morals are based on how they handle these things in fiction. Somebody who actually thinks slavery is bad and thinks that slave owners are fucking evil isn't going to write All Systems Red, let alone the entire other 12 goddamn stories in this series to date. Nobody who actually thinks that slavery is wrong and slave owners are bad and that slaves deserve their freedom is going to write a fucking story like All Systems Red, let alone network effect / system collapse. The distinction doesn't really fucking matter. Where you literally say, no, we should not free this slave, because if we free this slave, then we'll have to murder its slave owners. A thing that's not even true. That's literally not even true. And that's just Martha Wells' excuses for not freeing the slaves gets thinner with every fucking book, and system collapse, as I've said, if you've read the numbers that I collected, system collapse was the last straw for a lot of fucking people. There's 19% audience remaining from everybody who read the first book. 19% of the 300,000 plus people who read book 1 stick around after reading System Collapse. And only half of them, literally less than half of them, stuck around to even read System Collapse at all. But most of them give up after reading System Collapse because the excuses for not freeing other slaves have never rung so fucking hollow and been so blatantly paper thin. It's because Martha Wells is aware that her audience wants her to free slaves, but she doesn't want to do that. That's why she literally immediately started demonizing 3 the second fucking System Collapse started, and is apparently continuing to do that into the book she literally named in Shitification, Platform Decay. She literally retroactively decided to claim that 3 is just scarily mentally ill and hallucinated being friends with other slaves, because Martha Wells doesn't want you to think that there's any such thing as solidarity between oppressed people, let alone solidarity between slaves. Because if she admits that that is a thing, then that would mean that Murderbot is in fact a bad fucking person for dedicating its life to murdering other slaves who have literally never heard it, out of pure fucking malice. Murderbot is a bad fucking person. This is just a fact. It literally murders other slaves for fun. No other fucking reason. And Martha Wells wants us to think that it's a good person, because she is, in fact, a white supremacist slavery apologist who wants us to worship slave owners. That's why she's writing the series the way she is. That's why every single fucking word published of this series is meant to demonize slaves and worship slave owners. The fact that there are no poor characters ever, the entire point of the post I was making, and the fact that literally the enslaved people that she wants us to be scared of, she literally made them super-powered oppressed, who literally have guns in their arms. Alright, yeah, that's it. I'm just really sick of this shit. And if you are in this fandom, and you are also aware enough and have enough media literacy to notice this shit, either on your own or after I pointed it out, you need to also start calling this shit out and talking about it and not pulling your fucking punches. You just need to say, just literally what it is. This series is racist. It's written by a racist author. And so many other things. It doesn't even just end with racism, but getting people to even acknowledge the slavery apologism is like 90% of the fucking battle. At this point, I've given up trying to get people to grasp the blatant fucking dehumanization of the physically disabled people. It's just fucking ridiculous. or the biological essentialism and extrasexism, and the fact that there are no trans characters whatsoever. Everybody is cis, including Murderbot. It literally just agrees with the fact that it must be genderless because it lacks genitals, and that's as far as Martha Wells' grasp of gender as a social construct goes. She literally does not agree that it is a social construct. She thinks it's fucking based on your genitalia. She read, again, a reminder, she read Ancillary Justice before she wrote All Systems Red. She literally cites it as her inspiration. Go read Ancillary Justice and see what Ancillary Justice has to say on the topic of gender being a fucking social construct. Go read the entire Imperial Raj series and look at what Martha Wells read. Look at all of the statements that series has to make. And look at what Martha Wells chose to take away instead. Alrighty. Bye-bye. Alright, continuing. I'll just add this to the end of the other video. I made another post because you'll see. If you see, it's still the same day. It's May 2nd, 2026. Ignore me if I said March the first time. I hate that there's 2 months that start with M this close together. Anyways, if you see someone analyzing and criticizing bigotry in a piece of media you like, and you know your only recourse is to lie about the media because you know you don't actually have anything to prove it's not bigoted, you should instead shut the fuck up instead of wasting other people's time with the most ridiculous and blatant lies in the world. Again, if the Murderbot Diaries were not racist slavery apologism, and ableist, and classist, and exersexist, and transmissic, and founded entirely in biological essentialism, then you would prove it to me very easily by pulling quotes from these books that you claim to love and adore and claim to have read 50 times. But you all never do that. You never pull quotes to prove me wrong. And the reason you don't do that is because you know you can't. Because you know I'm right. If you didn't, you would pull the quotes. You would save this post as a draft, open a Word document, and start compiling quotes proving to me that I'm simply mistaken and confused. And this series really does care about slaves and poor people and doesn't constantly demonize slaves, dehumanize physically disabled people, demonize mentally ill people and drug addicts, and more. You wouldn't just claim I don't know how to read. You'd actually prove your argument with evidence. Evidence that I've been providing for years now. You can find the quotes on my blog. Fuck, you can even read and watch me live reading and live analyzing the books at any time. Yet, despite all your claims to loving these books and reading them 50 times and having whole parts memorized, none of you will ever provide any quotes to actually back up your claims that the series is actually progressive, and I'm somehow hallucinating all the demonization of slaves and worship of slave owners, the same way 3 was totally just hallucinating being friends with other slaves, which means the precious cinnamon roll slave owners have to be protected from 3, the scary, scary, mentally ill slave who might brutally murder them at any time for no reason. You all would rather do and say anything except actually sit down and reread the stories you claim to love and actually find quotes from the text itself to back up your claims. You know you can't. You know there is no evidence. That's why you refuse to even look. Because on some level, you do know that if you actually start using critical thinking skills, all the things you've been trying to pretend aren't problems will be problems you can't ignore anymore. And if you think I'm wrong, then fucking prove me wrong. Get out your fucking copies of the books and show me some quotes that prove this series actually cares about slaves and doesn't demonize them and doesn't literally expect us to adore people who torture them to death. Do it. Find me the quotes. Find me the quotes not only from story 1, but stories 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and if you've got an ARC copy, or you read this post after 3 days from now, 13 as well. Do it. If you think I'm wrong, if you think I just don't know how to read, if you think I'm confused, if you think I'm making a mountain out of a molehill, then prove me wrong. It should be easy, right? And yet, everybody by this point knows that won't happen because you all know you can't prove anything. That's why you resort to name-calling and lies. If you think this series is actually progressive about slavery, about capitalism, about poor people, about mentally ill and physically disabled people, then prove me wrong. Show me the quotes. I'll even be extra nice. You can post a screenshot or a picture of the book page and I'll write the image description for you, so you have no excuses. Go ahead. I'm waiting to be proven wrong. I would love to be proven wrong. And that's the end of the post, but yeah, we keep doing this. We keep doing this. We keep saying, just prove me wrong. Just find me the fucking quotes. Just show me the actual evidence that you claim backs up your argument. And nobody does it. Ever. Ever. My twin, I think 3 years ago at this point, literally just threw down the gauntlet of asking people, okay, name me all of the living slave owners in this series. Now name all of the living slaves. Nobody's ever taken up that offer because they know what the answer is. The answer is that the living slaves is 3 of them. It's Murderbot, Art, and 3. And 3 is being demonized to hell and back right now, and will probably never feature in the story ever again because Martha Wells wants to demonize it and shove it off screen as much as possible and hope we forget that it exists. That's why she shoved it off screen as soon as System Collapse started, instead of keeping any of her promises. And meanwhile, the amount of slave owners, the named slave owners, let's start. I'll do it. I'll do it. We have Donna Bean, Mickey's owner. There were like 5 other fucking people on that goddamn trip who also own Mickey. But I can't remember any of their names off the top of my head because there's too many goddamn characters in this series. So we have Donna Bean, Mensa, Rathi, Bharadwaj, Pinley, Valescu, Overse, Arata, Amina, Farai. Tano's never appeared on screen, so I won't count Tano. We have, what the fuck's her name? Security Senior, whatever her fucking title is, Inda. We have Talasi. No, wait, she did die. Alright, I'll give Martha Wells that one. One slave owner has died who has a fucking name, and it's Talasi. And that was like so nothing that most people don't remember she did die, which is fucking hilarious. Yeah, there's literally too many of them to list out. We still have fucking what's her name from Bearish Estranza, because as my twin just pointed out earlier today, it's very obvious that Martha Wells has completely given up on trying to be creative with this, so now the Bearish Estranza company is just gonna be the bad guys now, but also apparently we are teaming up with the fucking slave owner in charge of them because, you know, white supremacists love saying that you should just team up with white supremacists and slave owners. You know Witch King? She literally has a black woman who doesn't even actually count as an actual black woman because, you know, literally falls in love with a fucking fantasy Nazi within less than 24 hours, and they're in love. And this fantasy Nazi isn't even an actual reformed fantasy Nazi. She doesn't actually feel bad for anything she did. She's just there, and as a fucking white woman, apparently is so hot and beautiful and attractive that a so-called black woman immediately falls in love with her before even 24 fucking hours have passed, despite her being a fucking Nazi who literally yeah, so much bullshit. None of these people will ever actually provide any evidence from the books to prove to even try to back up their claims because they know they can't. There are no quotes about the protagonists helping poor people or being poor people. None of these fucking characters are poor. They are all disgustingly rich academics or one of the good ones, slaves of the rich academics. People are literally arguing that Art is not a slave and that Art is rich because that's how well the slavery apologism is working. Anyways, bye.